Well, let's unpack those numbers now and let's get into the gist of what is happening in South Africa's market as well. That is slightly down this afternoon, but I can tell you now that the Rand is performing a whole lot better, trading at around 14 Rand 21 as well against the US dollar. Let's chat now to Warwick Lucas from Galileo Capital to unpack this a little bit more for us. Warwick, thank you so much for the time. Always great to have you in studio with us. The market picture is certainly one where a keen focus just on the G20 summit that is coming up now this weekend is really the one big aim. Are we going to look at anything else within that summit other than China and the US?
Probably not. Okay, but that might be a bit extreme, because if we revisit, what is the G20 all about? Well, the G20 actually came about in 2009, just after the global financial crisis, where it was decided that a broader spectrum of major countries around the world would liaise regularly, predominantly on economic, but also other major political issues, to keep the world on track and try and prevent a future repeat of the whole sorry exercise of that financial crisis. So going forward, I guess it's pretty much what we're looking at now with US-China. Frankly, is front and center the most important issue. But generally, I suppose, trade overall is it's quite an old global framework that we're on. It needed some freshening up, and per force it is getting it.
Yeah. And I suppose then in some ways it makes Donald Trump look like the good guy in all of this, because he would have brought the discussion up, right? He would have made the world sort of take notice and take heed here to say, even if you think I'm going about it the wrong way, fact of the matter is China's influence on the rest of the world was perhaps getting a little too much and in some way needed to be reined in. Would you agree with that sort of sentiment?
Well, yeah, I mean, to some degree there was a transitioning going on here. I mean, China's rise clearly was absolutely meteoric, and I mean, it has become a massive global player. I mean, it is in most respects a number 2 or number 3 country of the world in terms of importance and power and so on. It is a pretender, or contender, I should say, for number 1 in a number of spheres within the next 20 years. And it no longer could continue playing the we're a poor country card anymore.
Yeah.
So this transition had to be managed.
Yeah, I can't even call them an emerging market economy, surely. Or is it just because of their growth levels that we continue to do so?
I think they've quite substantially moved beyond that label.
Yeah. All right. Well, other market sentiments, of course, that will be one to look out for, other than, of course, just Hong Kong, which should still be discussed at the G20 summit, which China has said they refuse to do so. It's certainly just around the Iran situation as well. Oil prices sitting still above that $65 a barrel mark. One might ask the question as to where exactly does this go? And again, how much benefit this will be for the United States?
Well, I think very clearly there is an interest in the US, frankly, not to go to war. I think talking about it is one thing, going there is another. I mean, a war is something that requires a massive commitment, both in terms of blood and politics and effort. And so on. So I think it's more a case of a lot of positioning going on until parties receive a revised accommodation.
Yeah, but does that revised accommodation come? I mean, we're almost on the brink of war here at some stage between Iran and the United States.
Sure. I mean, look, it was a bit closer at one stage, but I think fortunately there was a holding back at a critical point, and hopefully cooler heads prevail and take the scare and use it constructively.
Yeah. Let me ask you a very quick question. This is just off the cuff now, Warwick, but would you go into Bitcoin now? I mean, the price has now surged well above its highest mark in 18 months. 13,666 points yesterday. It's surging again because of Facebook's new launch of that currency deal as well, called Libra. Would you get into a space like that?
Not particularly. Look, it's very difficult with something like Bitcoin in that it is also a currency, and most currencies are they're basically almost social agreements. And generally, the more widely accepted your currency is because it's socially accepted most widely. So a good example of that is the US dollar. Second is something like the euro, again, a social agreement.
Yeah.
A currency doesn't actually have any value in and of itself. Its value lies in its acceptability. Now, with something like Bitcoin, I think it has been rising in much the same way that gold has in recent times. It's almost anti-establishment, it's positioned away from mainstream, and accordingly it's a hedge against politics as they stand at the moment. And I think that partially explains the big rebound that we're seeing in both gold and Bitcoin at the moment. Is it investable? I mean, one could make all sorts of dismal investment forecasts on Bitcoin. I'm not sure that one should look at it as an investment, really, particularly since I think it's quite an inefficient currency. It uses a lot of energy and costs to generate it. And I think newer cryptocurrencies and potentially something like Facebook's Libra, I think will eventually overtake it.
Sure. Quite an interesting one there. Okay, very quickly, the rand as well. Now at around 14.21 odd against that US dollar. That picture is certainly one of positivity. Where's that coming from?
I think a combination of, well, the gold price, I think, is obviously positive for SA, although, frankly, I mean, gold mining is a relatively small part of our economy. But I think also some hopes coming through there for a resolution. I mean, clearly, a stronger commodity environment is something that is very important to South Africa at the moment, and an improvement there would have major implications. So I think perhaps some hopes coming through there on that currency.
Fantastic. Warwick, always great chatting to you. Thank you so much for joining us here in studio, live here at the SABC. Warwick Lucas from Galileo Capital there, helping us unpack that market picture. We'll continue to give you the best then out of the SMME Global Day then. And that comes up right after the short break. My colleague Diawo Sito has some interesting segments right now following through with a few guests as well as we unpack that space. From me, however, that's where the buck stops. Let's go to an ad break.